Wanted to make this video to show you guys my new toy. I bought this machine initially to test my BMW injectors because I did have issues with them when my valve cover died, and my brother-in-law has been really good with kind of swapping injectors out because he also does a bunch of B58 stuff. And I wanted this unit to kind of service my injectors, but possibly other people in the DFW area that might need some injector services done. Now, to give you a brief overview of what this machine does, it's definitely not going to flow the injector as much as a high pressure fuel pump would on a B58 car or N55 or N54, or pretty much anything that uses a direct injector with a high pressure pump. But what it will do is it'll show me a comparison between the injector flow at a lower pressure. And that's something that I'm looking for. So on this machine, it's pretty cool. I can actually increase the voltage of the injector at 70 volts, the pulse width, and then I can set the time. Usually I just run a minute for this. And then I usually run this actual cleaner at about 70, 4 or 5 bar. And it's kind of hard to see, but just looking at the pulse and the injection spray, make sure there's no dramatic injector spray. Everything should be atomized pretty well. Obviously at the higher PSI, there would be a lot more atomization going on, but my concern is just at this low pressure. Once this low pressure test actually concludes in 30 seconds, I would then make a comparison throughout all the glass bases or these little cylinders, and see if they're within specs that, in my opinion, should be sufficient. But in this particular case, I've noticed that this injector usually flows on this machine something like 16 milliliters. So I would just look and just find a comparison. And so, as I said, it's kind of hard to see, but they are pretty much identical across the board. Now, this wasn't the case when I first got this injector. These set of injectors off my car. And like I said, the reason why I did get it is because I do have two B58 cars. My brother-in-law has two B58 cars. My brother-in-law's father has a S58 car, and then my father has an S58 car. So it was something that was going to benefit the family, but I figured I could make some money. So these three injectors, when I initially had them on there, were not flowing nowhere near as well as they were until I decided to ultrasonic clean them. And like I said, excuse my mess, I have to find a spot for these, including my ultrasonic machine. But once I did the test and it corrected a lot, that's good. So I do want to offer this service for those that are in the area with injectors that I can service. And I'm also going to offer a service where I actually replace the actual seals on this with replacement seals, which is really important because without replacing these seals, it can cause some pretty rough idle and things of that nature you don't want when you're running a boosted car. Now this machine, I actually salvaged. It was a throwaway machine, and I actually fixed it, and I'll kind of show you what's going on with this one. Now with this machine, the reason why I said it was salvaged is because initially the person that had it ran a pretty caustic or pretty the word I'm looking for, corrosive, there you go, a corrosive liquid through it, like I think it was like Behrman's or something of that, like carburetor cleaner. That's perfectly fine when you're cleaning injectors, but that is not good when you're actually testing injectors. So you don't want to do that because everything below here is made of a material that is not meant to deal with that corrosiveness. So on these machines, you could run an ultrasonic liquid or an injector tester. It's substantially expensive. So what I like to do is run 91% isopropyl alcohol, and it does a pretty good job. So on these tests, I can actually observe the injector size. And so these are going to be in milliliters. But what I do is I run a test at the high speed at 1 minute, and then I convert it over, and I can actually get the cc's out of this. So, in this particular case, this injector is rated for about 280 or 290 cc's. I forgot what it was, based off the part number on Denso. These are Toyota Camry injectors, or the V6, the 3.5 liter. And so I use this just as an example. And then I'm going to run this at about 43 psi which is this is usually rated for. So as you can see, the injector is spraying. And I know that on this injector, this driver is pretty much dead. There's nothing I can really do to get this one back to life. But the spray pattern is good after I clean them. These injectors also were not equally matched. And I know one of the injectors is a little bit less matched than the other. It's kind of what I would expect. But after this 30-second count, I'm gonna actually show you the difference in injector itself. And like I said, I try to keep it at 43 PSI range so we can get a relatively accurate reading. Okay, so now that this test is done, like I said, it's 290-ish cc, give or take. You can see that the test is pretty accurate, either closer to 300 cc. This one's a tad bit over, very little. And then obviously this one is dead and this one is below, okay? So as I said, I like to keep it between 2 to 5% variation from each other. Some people, like especially if you're driving something that, you know, takes a lot of boost, a lot of fuel, this might not be sufficient for your build, but most likely I guarantee on a Toyota Camry, the car probably doesn't even care. So I would be offering a service where I can also clean port injection on this machine, also, and show you a before and after. Do leak tests like that. Sometimes the injectors, you need to pressurize the injector and make sure they don't leak. So all those things that are just going to show you that your injector is running efficiently, especially if you're buying aftermarket injectors. This injector machine, I actually upgraded the fuel pump so I can do a pretty large injector. Some people are saying, well, you can't do anything above 1,000 cc's. I definitely can now that the fuel pump is upgraded. It's a very simple machine. So if you're interested in that service, let me know. I'm going to build out a data sheet showing you like the pros and cons of the injector you provide. And this is just a service that should be pretty affordable. Like I said, I haven't figured out how to price it. I'm going to be looking around and seeing what's fair. And then maybe be a little bit cheaper since I am getting into this. It's just going to be something that's going to, you know, get me by, you know, be able to allow me to modify my car and then kind of help some people out in the area. So if you're interested, let me know, and I'll give you information over Facebook Messenger or whatever you might be interested in. Peace.